Are you someone who's training for a Hyrox and you're not really sure how to be running and training from the running side of things to get you the best time possible and make the event as easy as it can be? Now, luckily for you, in this video, I'm going to be showing you the blueprint about how to structure your running training throughout your whole training cycle for Hyrox in terms of what different types of runs you should be doing and when you should be doing them. So, if you've got Hyrox booked and you need to up your running game, then keep watching. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is what actually is Hyrox running. Well, as you know, if you book the event, you're going to do 8 by 1,000 meters. But this isn't all you're doing. You have to do the rock zone as well. Now, in events like the XL in London, for example, it's quite a long venue, which means you've got a long rock zone, which means it actually makes up more than 50% of the race, even though officially it is 50% compared to the stations. Obviously, 8 runs, 8 stations. This is going to affect how we train, especially when we compare normal running to Hyrox. Normal running, your heart rate is going to be relatively steady. It might go up, it might go down, but it's going to do that at a relatively gradual rate if we use like a 10K or a half marathon. When you're looking at Hyrox, what's going to happen is your heart rate is going to spike a lot more because we have the stations in there too, meaning you're going to have heart rate elevation and then it's going to maybe settle a little bit on the runs and it's just going to go up and down regularly for about an hour to 90 minutes, depending on what category and how fast you are. Now, I know we're talking about the running in this video, but if you want 30 ways in 30 days that you can smash your whole Hyrox race, then make sure you scan the QR code or click the link in the description, and I'll get back to the video. So, now we know that Hyrox running is different to normal running and that it makes up over 50% of our race. We need to think about what sort of runs we're going to be doing. When it comes to your running training for Hyrox, you can categorize these into 4 different groups. You've got your long, slow runs, you've got your interval training, you've got your lactate threshold, and you've got your compromised running. All of these need to be done at some point in your training cycle, but what do they actually mean? Well, your long, slow runs are your zone 2 runs. This is your aerobic work, conversational pace, 60 to 70% heart rate max. These are going to be 40 to 90 minutes. Your intervals, not to be confused with a lactate, which is why I'm going to explain this now, are going to be speed-based. So we're looking to make you faster here, which is an example. This will be 8 by 1,000. Lactate threshold, we're looking to improve our ability to buffer lactate. So that's remove lactic acid as it builds up as we do our event, which is going to happen a lot during Hyrox because of the movements in the stations. Now, a lactate threshold is different to an interval. An interval is a max effort. A lactate threshold is your max sustainable efforts. So I'm going to do longer intervals, of say 4 by 8 minutes. I'm going to try and sustain these as long as possible, as opposed to doing my 1,000 meter repeats as fast as possible and every set is as hard as it can be. And we're not worrying quite so much about drop off in pace, although obviously we do want it to be repeatable. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole science lesson because I could, but that's the difference between intervals and lactate threshold. You need both. Then compromised running is like your mixed modal running. So this is like the Hyrox event itself. So you've got things like your ski to compromise your run because you're already tired, your heart rate's already elevated, making the run harder. And that's something that should also be thrown in. Now, we need to bring all of this together in something that we call periodization. Now, periodization is your overall training block. So if we've got a scale, this is our training cycle. You've got your race, you've got week 1. The first thing we need to do is start broad and we niche down. A bit like me with my business. When I first started, I started aiming PT at everyone. Now I only aim PT at those with performance-based goals, or they're either in a sport or they do Hyrox or they're a runner. Don't work with anyone else, okay? In terms of taking on new people. Now, speaking of which, what's the most broad here? It's your long, slow runs, it's your aerobic work. So this is what's going to go first. So this is going to be your port of call to build the engine, building the foundations that we can build upon with the other 3 groups. So these are going to start our training cycle. The next thing is actually going to be your lactate threshold. We want to get that in early because it's a huge part of Hyrox. So this is going to overlap a little bit, but then this is the next most broad element and it's slightly less intense, okay? The least intense run types are your long slow runs and your lactate threshold, which means they're going to go first. Then we throw in the intervals because that's more intense, it's more speed. And as I said, we go broad, and as we go in, we get more niche, which means the intensity goes up as the volume goes down. But intensity means you're going to be faster, which means we're going to put in more speed work to aid this principle, okay? The last thing I should say you're going to add in is your compromised running. And that's going to be, admittedly, you're still going to get a few weeks of this. If we say his training cycle was 12 weeks, you're going to be getting at least probably 5 weeks of compromised running in. But it's the last thing we add because we need the foundations. We need to make sure we've got the gas tank from the aerobic. We need to make sure we've got good buffering capability from the lactate. We need to make sure we've got the speed on the intervals. Now we put it all together to see how fast we can hold pace when we're running under fatigue. And that's what compromised running is. And this makes up your whole training cycle. Now I'm going to add a star here because at the end, you've got your race. Now on your race week, you're going to reduce volume by 50%. So whatever you do on the couple of weeks before, you're going to cut that in half and do that on the race week, okay? And the general rule, as I say, from week 1, volume's going to probably peak at about week 3 to 4, and then it's going to come slowly down before we get to the last 2 to 3 weeks, which will be what we call peaking or tapering, which is where you're going to see intensity go up further and volume go down. Now, that is how to structure a program when it comes to running for Hyrox. Obviously, you've got other things like strength training to mix in here, but this is just about the running. If you want a video about the stations, I've done one of those. If you just click this one right here, then that's going to get you what you need. And as I say, if you want more tips like this, check out my 30 ways in 30 days. Link in the description and on the screen right now. I promise you, you don't have to pay me a penny to potentially get the best PB and your best performance ever. If you have any questions at all, please let me know because I have gone through it quickly. But I hope you have a great day.